Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rupal Bobbitt, and I'm the Deputy Commissioner and BACP's Public Chauffeur and Public Vehicle Licensing Unit. Thank you for joining today's webinar to learn all about becoming a licensed City of Chicago public chauffeur or obtaining a license for your public passenger vehicle. Okay. So just a little about what BACP does. As you know, BACP is the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, and we have an entire unit and facility dedicated just to ensure that Chicago moves safely. So what the Public Vehicle Licensing Operations Division does is we ensure that all the public passenger vehicles in Chicago are safe, reliable, and provide residents and visitors with positive transportation options. So just to give you an example of the types of public passenger vehicles that we license, they include taxi cabs and liveries, which are also limos, transportation network provider, which is the ride-hail industry, charter and sightseeing buses, pedicabs, low-speed electric public vehicles, metacars, private ambulances, and jitneys, and even water taxis and water boats. So basically anything that is driven by a paid chauffeur or driver is licensed by BACP's Public Vehicle Unit. Okay, so these are the two things I hope everybody takes away from today's webinar. The first is our webpage. We have a webpage, which is chicago.gov/public vehicles, which is just dedicated to everything anybody would ever want to know about Chicago's public passenger vehicle industry. It includes detailed license information, fact sheets, license application and checklist, applicable laws. Just keep in mind that this webinar isn't just a general overview, that our webpage has detailed information with links to applicable laws for each specific type of chauffeur and public passenger vehicle license type. The other takeaway, I hope everybody notes, is our email address. We have an email address that's dedicated to all things public vehicle, and it's BACPPV, which is the department name and public vehicle at cityofchicago.org. We don't want people to try to guess or make assumptions about what they need for a license application or any questions about a license. Just save time and effort. Just email your questions to us. Please always include your name and the specific license type in all your communications with BACP. If you have been assigned a license number or already have an account number, always include those numbers as well. Okay, so the most common question we receive is, who and what needs a BACP license? So number one is the driver, which we refer to as the public chauffeur. So the driver of any public passenger license public vehicle, the driver of any BACP licensed public passenger vehicle must have a public chauffeur license. It's issued by BACP. So a public chauffeur is the license to drive passengers for compensation. So anybody driving these vehicles is being paid to drive those passengers for transportation. Keep in mind that Illinois law requires that larger vehicles, so any vehicle with 16 or more seats, which includes the driver, have an active commercial driver's license with passenger endorsement. So the other component is the vehicle. The public passenger vehicle also needs its own license. So in our world, and the legal definition is a public passenger vehicle is used to transport passengers for hire, so for compensation. So taxi, a livery, a ride-hail vehicle, charter bus, pedicab, water taxi, they all need a BACP license. Now, if the same individual is both the chauffeur and the vehicle owner, then they need both licenses. One as the chauffeur and the other as the public passenger vehicle license holder. And this is the second most popular question we receive. What trips need BACP, public chauffeur, and public passenger vehicle license? So any trip which is a pickup in the city of Chicago and a drop off in the city of Chicago is licensed and regulated by BACP. Keep in mind that both O'Hare and Midway airports are within the city of Chicago. So any pickup at either airport and a drop off anywhere within the city of Chicago at all, within the city limits, must be licensed by BACP. And it falls within our regulations and ordinances as well. Larger vehicles, which are licensed or registered with the United States Department of Transportation to perform interstate passenger trips, are exempt from BACP licenses. So those vehicles have US DOT numbers painted on them, or visible on the exterior of the vehicles to indicate that they are regulated by the federal government. Now, a trips with a passenger pickup within the Chicago and a drop out outside of Chicago does not need a BACP license. However, there are Chicago airport departure and ground transportation taxes which apply. Same thing in the reverse. A passenger pickup outside of Chicago with a drop off within Chicago does not need a BACP license. However, there are also, again, airport departure and ground transportation taxes which apply. Okay, so now let's talk about the driver, which is the public chauffeur. So just the chauffeur license is only $5 for a 2-year license term. Keep in mind that odd numbered licenses expired in odd numbered calendar years, and even numbered licenses expire in even numbered calendar years. Here's some minimum qualifications for a public chauffeur license. The next few slides have a lot of information, but just keep in mind our webpage, which is chicago.gov/public vehicles. All of this information is at our webpage. So to be a City of Chicago licensed public chauffeur, you need to be at least 21 years of age. But if for a pedicab chauffeur, you only need to be 18 years or older. You need an active permanent driver's license, which is in good standing. The driver's license must be issued by the state of Illinois or other US state for a minimum of 1 year prior to application date. We currently have public chauffeurs with driver's licenses in Wisconsin and Indiana. As long as it is a US government state issued driver's license, it meets the qualifications, and you need to have the driver's license for a minimum 1 year before applying for the license. Keep in mind that public chauffeurs are, driving passengers for compensation, for hire. They're common carriers. So our laws require the individuals that are applying to have 1 year of driving experience before applying. So complete and pass public chauffeur training course and licensing exam. So the law requires, our city laws require that public chauffeurs take an approved chauffeur training course and pass a licensing exam. Obtain debt clearance from the city of Chicago and clear criminal and background driving history searches. Okay, now we're going into the actual steps. So if any individual wants to become a City of Chicago public chauffeur and they are applying for a license, these are the steps. And again, this is all in details at our webpage. So first, they need to take and pass the taxi or the restricted livery chauffeur training course and licensing exam. The list of approved training programs is at our webpage. The applicants they're limited to taking a training course from an approved training program. So it's very important to make sure you are familiar with that list and only go to a training program, training school on that list. The second is to collect all the following prior to submitting your license application. So obtain, and you can do this online. You don't have to go to the Illinois Secretary of State, but we specifically need a court purposes and supervision record of your driving abstract. If you have an Illinois driver's license, it's very easy to go online to the Illinois Secretary of State website and just obtain it electronically. And we also require a debt clearance from the Department of Finance. Details on that are at our webpage. So these are things that people should be doing before they apply. Take the class, pass the exam, and then get these documents. Then the third step is to actually apply. And there's two options out there. Actually, we give two options. The first, you could apply via email. You could submit your application on all your documents by email. The second option for applicants is to apply in person. You could apply at our facility at 2350 West Ogden, Monday through Friday, 8:30 and 12 p.m. That's the time for our walk-ins without appointments. We also do have at our website an appointment scheduling tool for people to make appointments for the afternoon times. So when you do submit the application, when you're submitting your application, you need to submit the actual application, which they're all available at our website. There's a chauffeur application, and there's a which encompasses any type of chauffeur. You need to submit your training course completion certificate. You need to give us your motor vehicle driving abstract. Again, it's core purpose and supervision, and your debt clearance. And you also need to submit a copy of your driver's license. Some of these documents have date restrictions. So it's very important that you go to our website to look at the date restrictions. For example, we will not accept a core purposes supervision driving abstract that's over a year old. So there's certain restrictions. Please look at our website for details. All right. Now, I wanted to introduce something new that we've implemented, and that's a new timeline or sequence of steps. So applicants must now submit their application to BACP, and then they go fingerprinting. In the past, the fingerprinting happened before they submitted the application, but now you need to submit first your application. We need to have an application on file, and then you submit to fingerprinting and go to fingerprinting. So this is very important. This is a brand new timeline. It's a brand new sequence of steps. And this is again at our website, but I just wanted to just emphasize that this is the new sequence of steps. So nobody should be going to get fingerprinted before they submit an application. Again, applications can be submitted by email or in person. So the fourth step is to actually get fingerprinted. And it's a fingerprint or biometric-based background history report is required. And just like emphasizing again, do not get fingerprinted before submitting the license application to BACP and obtaining an account or license number. There is a list of BACP-approved agencies at our webpage that do national FBI state criminal background checks. Make sure you go to one of those BACP-approved agencies. And then when you're done with fingerprinting, submit a copy of your fingerprint TCN number and receipt, which is the TCN stands for transaction control number, to BACP. And you could, again, email it to us, or you could do it in person. And then the final step is once we have all your documentation, once we have reviewed your background check and received the fingerprint background check results, we will contact you. We will contact you either most likely by email, or we might call you to tell you everything is cleared. Come into our offices to pick up your chauffeur license. Our facility is at 2350 West Ogden. You arrive, bring your photo ID, your driver's license. We just need a photo ID with you when you come in, and the license fee is $5. And then you come in, finish the processing, take a photo, and you receive your chauffeur license. Okay. So that whole section was about the driver or the chauffeur. Now I'm going to talk about the vehicle. And this list just gives you a list of the vehicles that we license. So we license taxi cabs, we license liveries, which also are limousines. We license charter sightseeing vehicles, pedicabs, commercial passenger vessels, metacars, private ambulances, and low-speed electric public passenger vehicles. Commercial passenger vessels are also water taxis and tour boats because they're captained with, again, something that is driven by a paid driver is what we license. This list gives you all the different license fees that are associated with each license type. Okay. Now, the basic qualifications for all public vehicle license applicants are the same. So, number one, a Chicago business address. So this is required by city council. Our city ordinance specifies that any license holder of a public passenger vehicle license must have a Chicago business address. And I'm going to share what the definition is. A location within the city where the city may send and the licensee shall accept notices of hearing or other notices from the city. A location within the city where a licensee maintains its business and financial records relating to the licenses involved. If anybody has a question of what is a Chicago business license, email us. Don't guess, just email us and we can give you information. We also have a document at our webpage that gives more information of what is a Chicago business address as defined by our ordinance. I'm just going to go through the rest of the list of qualifications. If it's a corporate entity, like a corporation or LLC, it must be in good standing and in compliance with state of Illinois laws. The license holders, so the officers, managers of the license applicant, if it's a corporation or LLC, if it's an individual, the individual must clear a fingerprint biometric-based criminal background check. Another requirement is to secure and maintain mandated insurance, obtain a vehicle which complies with laws and safety requirements. This is actually an important part. You need to have a vehicle if you're going to be in the business of a public passenger vehicle. Resolved, city of Chicago debt. If there was debt, you have to resolve it as part of before the license can be issued. BACP does review an applicant's character, reputation, and financial ability to operate public passenger vehicles lawfully and safely. Okay, these are the steps for a public passenger vehicle license, how to apply. There's a list of documents which should be collected prior to submitting your license application. I'll go through them, but again, detailed lists are at our webpage. We need to make sure that the person that's applying for the license actually owns the vehicle that they're going to do the business in, or has some kind of legal authority to use the vehicle for this business. So a current vehicle title or certificate of origin front and back, or Illinois Secretary of State registration. If it's a vehicle bill of sale to show ownership, a current vehicle history for vehicles older than current model year. So this is 2024. If the vehicle is 2023 model year or older, we need a vehicle history report. If the vehicle is leased, we need a signed lease and information about the lessor. If we also need a current Illinois Department of Transportation or IDOT vehicle inspection form for vehicles older than a current model year. So for 2024 model year vehicles, we don't need an IDOT inspection, but 2023, even if it's bought new this year, we do need an IDOT inspection. A current corporate LLC file detail report showing that the corporate entity is active status with the Illinois Secretary of State. Articles of incorporation, organization of corporation. We need to know who are the officers. Corporate minutes and the LLC operating agreement, again, that lists all the owners, officers, and shareholders of the company. Proof of place of business in Chicago, such as a current business or residential lease or current property tax bill. Again, this is the requirement in the ordinance for the business to have a place of business actually in the city of Chicago, and the completed license application. The various different license applications are at our webpage. There's a separate application for a charter bus, for a livery, for Metacar. They're all at our webpage. Submit the application. The application can be, again, submitted via email or in person. If it is in person, the walk-in times are 8:30 to 12. And if you're going to can't make it that time, you could schedule an appointment. The scheduling tool, appointment schedule tool, is at our webpage. Make sure you bring copies of what you're submitting. We don't make copies. We don't have the capacity. And make sure you always keep a set of your own documents. If you're emailing them, make sure everything is in one email. So take your time, put your packet together, send the one email with the application, all supporting documents, include your full name and the license type in the email. Okay, I want to emphasize again that there's a new timeline and sequence of steps. In the past, applicants for public passenger vehicle licenses were fingerprinted before they applied. Now you must wait until you submit the application before you go get fingerprinted. This is really very, very important. First, submit the application either by email or by in person. We will respond and let you know, go and get fingerprinted now. There's a list of BACP approved agencies, fingerprinting agencies at our website that perform national FBI state criminal background checks. Once you do get fingerprinted, send us a copy of your, or email it to us, or you could drop it off, a copy of your fingerprint TCN receipt. And then we will be checking and making sure that your background check is in the portal. So it could take a couple days to clear. Sometimes it can take weeks. Once you're cleared and meet all the requirements, we will contact you. We'll contact you either by email or by phone and tell you it's time to pick up your license. You come with a photo ID with the appropriate license fee to 2350 West Ogden, and then we issue the license, and you get a hard part license certificate. Okay. City of Chicago, BACP also licenses and regulates transportation network providers, which is the Chicago's legal name for ride-hail companies. So every TMP company, a TMP company provides pre-arranged transportation service via a smartphone. Some of the current licensed TMP companies are Uber, Lyft, Via, Rides, and User. The BACP TMP license fee is $10,000 annually plus a 2-cent per TMP trip fee, license fee. In addition, all TMPs pay ground transportation tax and pay accessibility fund fees. So BACP licenses the companies and the chauffeurs. TMP company license applicants also must meet the same qualifications for public passenger vehicle license holders, including submitting to a biometric background check. And then TMP chauffeurs must also meet the same qualifications as public chauffeur licensees. So they must also clear criminal and driver history background checks. Okay. Now, once you have a license, congratulations for those that get the new licenses. It's like, what's next? Well, now you have a business, either as a chauffeur or as a public passenger vehicle license holder. You have a business, and we support the businesses, and we want to make sure that businesses are in compliance. So we maintain license compliance. Keep your business in active status. Keep your license in active status. So for the public passenger vehicle license holder, anybody that does get a livery license or a charter bus license, we actually created toolkits. We have toolkits that are at our website that provide guidance and support. They give you a laundry list of things you should be doing once you have the license. They give you information on making sure that that you're going to renew your license in time. That what are the signage requirements. It also gives you information on, you need to maintain required insurance policies. Make sure that they're filed with us. If you change your insurance during the license term, you need to submit the new insurance policies to BACP. So they need to be always on file with BACP. Make sure that you take the vehicle for scheduled inspections. Not all vehicle types have scheduled inspections, but for the ones that do, you need to make the scheduled inspection. And the list of inspection dates and time are actually at our web page. So you could look up your inspection any day, any time, and be prepared for it. And also timely file and pay City of Chicago taxes and fees. So these are things, just generally what public passenger vehicle licensees should do to make sure that they are in compliance and remain in active status. And now for the public chauffeur license. Also, the driver needs to keep their license in active status. For both the chauffeur and the public passenger vehicle, once you get a license, it has an expiration date. Know the expiration date when you leave our office. Put in your, phone as a date reminder that my license expires on this date. That way you could track your license expiration date and do what you need to timely renew. Public chauffeurs should review the rules and regulations which govern their conduct. So there are specific, basic things, no use of profanity, safe driving, and no, you can't refuse service to passengers based on a disability or discriminatory reason. So they're just basic requirements for conduct for public chauffeurs, but they should be aware of them and follow them. And we also publish at our webpage traffic management directives. Lollapalooza is starting tomorrow. It's a 4-day huge music festival. It's an international event. The traffic management directives are at our webpage, which outline where passengers can be picked up, where they can be dropped off, what streets are closed. So that's helpful for the business of being a public chauffeur, even a public passenger vehicle, to be able to serve those events safely and making sure that the pickup and drop-offs are safe and efficient for everybody. Okay. We also have a dedicated campaign for passengers, and it's called Ride Smart Chicago. It's chicago.gov Ride Smart. And the entire campaign, is focused on passengers, for passengers to have tips, know laws, and have information when they are passengers of taxi cabs, ride hails, and other public passenger vehicles. We want everybody to be safe in these public passenger vehicles, the passengers, and also the drivers. You could go to chicago.gov, /RideSmart to view tips on engaging taxi cabs and other for hire vehicles in Chicago. The taxi cab fare structure is listed at that website. For everybody's information, just, we do take complaints. Any passengers or anybody actually can file a report, a complaint or issue using the CHI's 311 system, where you can call 311, visit the 311 webpage, or download the 311 app. BACP responds to complaints and also conducts unannounced proactive investigations to ensure that public passenger vehicles are safe, reliable, and provide residents and visitors a positive transportation experience. Okay, so now how do you submit your application? So again, there's 2 options. One is in person. You could in person at our facility at 2350 West Ogden. Walk-in applicants without appointments must check in at the reception desk before noon. Appointments can be, but you could also make an appointment at our webpage. Bring copies to keep your own set of documents. We're unable to print or make copies for personal use. there's some days we are so busy that our focus is on making sure that we issue the licenses and we don't, and there's no time to make copies for personal use. Before coming to the facility, just go to our website and just check, confirm the facility hours, walk-in service times, and appointment scheduling. You could go to our website. You could also submit applications via email. And again, one single email with the application and all supporting documents. Please, it's very important that in all emails, communications, or any communication with BACP, include your full name, your license type, and license number. We get, I went into like hundreds and hundreds of emails a week, and we're getting significant amount of emails with no information. So we don't even understand what the question is or why people are reaching out to us. So help us help you by giving us this information in the email. And just, again, these are our resources, and the two takeaways I would like everybody to have is our webpage and our email address. I also wanted to just make sure everybody is aware that there is a Chicago data portal, and there are data sets specific to public passenger vehicles. And the webpage is data.chicago.gov. So once you're issued a license, there was a slide about maintaining compliance and active status. Anybody right now can go to the public passenger vehicle data set and check a license number, the license type, and see the status. And this is updated throughout the day. So if a license status changes in our office, within hours, it's reflected on the data portal. We also maintain the public passenger vehicle inspection schedule. So if you're a taxi or a livery or an ambulance and you've lost or you forgot when your scheduled inspection is, that's okay. You just go to our webpage. You go to the data portal. You could look it up. You can look it up by your license number, and it'll be listed. It'll tell you the date, time, and it'll tell you the inspection type. It's dynamic. It gets updated, and it's current. There's also a data set of public chauffeurs. So to maintain compliance and make sure your license is in active status, you can look up your own chauffeur number and see what the status is, to see if it's active or if it's expired or what the current status is. So these are all great resources for the public, but specifically for licensees to help manage their license and their business. Okay. So that is the conclusion of the presentation. And we can now move to questions.
I'm looking in the chat, Rupal. It's saying, somebody said we do not have an address. Okay, here it is. Here's the full question. If I have a limousine service outside the city of Chicago and only do rides from the suburbs to Chicago, not Chicago to Chicago, in our 15-passenger van, are we still required to have a BACP public passenger vehicle license? And we do not have an address in Chicago.
Okay, so if you have a US DOT registered or licensed vehicle, so you're governed by the federal government, and it's as long as it has to be passenger endorsement. The federal government does not require everybody that has a federal license to get a local license. So you do not need a BACP license if you have a US DOT number. It doesn't matter if it's within Chicago, like, a US DOT number trumps local licensing. Okay. Did that answer your question? I hope that did.
They said yes.
Okay. And VIA is a licensed TMP. If it wasn't on my list, I apologize, but VIA is a licensed TMP in Chicago. If that's, I'm looking at the chat. I don't know if it's a question or a comment, but VIA is a licensed transportation network provider company.
You have two questions in the Q&A box.
Okay, that's a different. No, taxi cab does not include Uber. Like, it's a separate license. A taxi cab license is a taxi cab license. Taxi cabs can do street hails. They could be a taxi cab stands. Uber is a transportation network provider. Uber, Lyft, Via, Rides, User, they're all transportation network providers. Do you have a follow-up question to that? I don't know. Okay.
You see this one? Can you talk more about the $10,000 fee for rideshare?
Is that in the Q&A?
It's in the chat.
Okay, I was like, okay. Yes, there's so it's a transportation network provider license. It's the company license. It's not just 10,000. It's $10,000 for the company plus a 2 cent for trip. So for every trip, there's a 2 cent fee. So it's both. That is the license fee for the company. And there is a detailed fact sheet on transportation network provider industry, our licensing, regulation, and fees at our webpage.
Uh, you guys can feel free to raise your virtual hand and we can unmute you if you would like to ask your question in person. Well, in real time, put it that way. If I had an SUV and only did rides from suburbs to Chicago, I still won't need, okay, it's moving. Let me go back. I still wouldn't need a BACP public passenger vehicle license. It's in the chat.
Okay, so I don't know what kind of, I can't answer that because I don't know if the SUV has a license outside of the city of Chicago. Like even even if a city of Chicago license doesn't apply, the vehicle might still need a license, like of a taxi license or a livery license from outside of city of Chicago. So and the SUV is not enough information for me to answer that question. Okay. So US DOT regulates interstate transportation. So US DOT registration is interstate, meaning you're crossing state lines. So if you're going from Illinois to Wisconsin or Illinois to Indiana, or from Indiana to Illinois or Wisconsin to Illinois, you need a US DOT registration, passenger endorsement for the vehicle. And the driver also needs a CDL with passenger endorsement. So the question is, if you do not have a Chicago address and you're driving from suburbs to airport, you must be registered with DOT. If you're US DOT is not within Illinois. So if you're going from the suburbs to Chicago, that's not US DOT, it's out of state. Okay.
Looks like we have someone who raised their hand. Let me unmute.
Okay.
Jacob, go ahead. You have to accept that. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so just a question that I had. So I'm in the process of starting a limousine service in the suburbs here, and we'll be doing rides to Chicago, not Chicago, in Chicago. And just wanted to clarify, it sounds like if we have a DOT number for our big 15 passenger vans, it sounds like our chauffeurs will not need a City of Chicago chauffeur's license, and we also will not need a public passenger vehicle license. Am I understanding that correctly?
Okay, so US DOT is federally regulated.
Okay.
So if you have US DOT registration, okay, US DOT means that that vehicle, and then it's a CDL driver. Again, they have to be specifically passenger endorsement. If you have the US DOT licensing and registration and the vehicle is marked accordingly and the driver has CDL, the whole intent of the US DOT licensing is that vehicle can travel from state to state and not have to get a license for every jurisdiction they go through.
Yeah,
If there's a
and
vehicle that's going from California to New York and it's US DOT, they don't need to get a license from
of
every
course,
single town that they go through. So that is the intent. So if you have US DOT passenger endorsement, registration, licensing for the vehicle, and corresponding registration, CDL for the driver, and you're in compliance with DOT, US DOT, you then that trumps literally City of Chicago
right.
licensing and Illinois licensing.
Yeah, and I totally understand that. So our 15 passenger van does not require CDL. I understand that, but we also have SUVs as well. So I just wanted to confirm because those do not have DOT numbers on the side.
Okay, well, they need to be licensed by a jurisdiction. If it's not the City of Chicago, it needs to be licensed by a jurisdiction to do passenger transportation for hire. When you go, if you're going to be doing business at O'Hara Midway, you
Okay,
also need to register those vehicles with the Department of Finance and to get an app and to register those vehicles to be able to do pickups at Chicago airports. So you may not need a City of Chicago license because you're
gotcha.
not doing transportation within in the City of Chicago, but you still need to be in compliance
Of
with
course.
other City of Chicago laws. And
Okay,
that includes being registered to do airport pickups and also for ground transportation tax and airport departure tax, which is a state law.
okay,
So airport departure tax is a state law. So anybody picking up, it doesn't matter if you're City of Chicago licensed or if you're suburban licensed, you have to pay an airport departure tax.
of course.
City of Chicago collects on behalf of the state of Illinois. And so then you have to be registered, and there's an app system to register and create an account. And then
Right.
every time you go to the airport, there's an automatic charge. There's a charge for the pickup, which for the taxes are assessed. And then there's
Okay,
a file. There's a file return, a tax return that needs to be filed.
of course. Okay, great.
So there
Thank
are
you.
regulations that govern that might not have to do with licensing. Plus, there's
Okay,
export protocols that need to be followed.
okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. And then there's a question, when are these changes with regards to the chauffeur license application submissions going into effect? So uh we we didn't put an effective date, but it's our new process going forward. If there are applications already submitted, and then there's going to be a transition period. But the change in the steps and the order and steps actually comes from the FBI. The FBI and also the Illinois State Police. They don't want applicants to get fingerprinted before they submit an application. So the licensing entity, which is BACP, must have an application on file, um, before that applicant goes to get fingerprinted. It's actually going to be better for the applicants because some applicants get fingerprinted 6 months before they actually file an application. And by the time they file the application, we have no access. Those the background checks have expired and that person has to get re-fingerprinted. So this will also facilitate, eliminate duplication for applicants. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, Stella, am I missing
I'm going through them.
any other questions? Okay, here it is. Okay.
Does Texas
There
tab
is a
include
TMP
Uber?
law passed by municipal code that the insurance policy for riders. At present, TMP are charging for riders and TMP are charging to the driver. What is your view? I didn't understand the question. If you could send the question to BACP PV at City of Chicago, send it and then reference the law you're talking about and what is happening, we're happy to review and respond. Okay.
I'm looking in the chat box. I'm just going back and forth. Who can register for this license? And is it based on status?
What license are you referring to? And what status are you referring to? I don't understand the question enough to respond.
Feel free to raise your virtual hand and we can try to answer you directly. We still have a little time. That person is about to send you an email report that you asked for the email. They just responded.
I'm sorry.
The person you asked to send you an email, they said they are getting ready to do so.
Okay, great.
Any more questions? We still have a little time, about 3-4 minutes. You can either raise your virtual hand or put your question in the chat or the Q&A box. They're referring to immigration status.
I'm sorry. That is not a application question. None of our applications ask for immigration status.
They said, thank you.
Are there more questions? Let's see.
No, I don't see any.
If people have questions that they think about later or they were not comfortable asking, in this forum, you can email us at bacppv@cityofchicago.org. And please include your full name, the license type, and any identifying information so we can best answer you.
It will be, when you need this, Wednesday?
Okay, well, it looks like that is it for today. If there's something that you did not understand or need more assistance on, please feel free to send an email to Rupal and her team, and I'm quite sure they will get back to you in a timely fashion. If you are a part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, you will automatically receive credit for your attendance today for this webinar. To learn more about our program and to join, please visit chicago.gov/BACP certificate. Again, that's chicago.gov/BACP certificate. Rupal, thank you again for today's presentation, and everyone have a great day.
So you
All right, take care.